There are now more states that are starting to send out ballots to everyone. So we're hearing about ballots being found in ditches, ballots being stolen, ballots being, rifled out of post office drop boxes and that sort of thing. I thought we'd talk about this important issue with our friend Hans von Spakovsky, senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation, more importantly appointed to the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity. He's manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative. Hans, welcome back to the program.
Lars, thanks for having me back.
So tell me this, is fraud going to play a big role in tomorrow night's vote when it's finally counted after the polls close and the ballots at least arguably are in most places?
Well, it depends on how close the election is. And, the key to the kind of fraud that we have seen happening across this country for years is it can really make the difference in a close election. And that, of course, is the key. I probably don't need to remind folks that just 2 years ago, we had a congressional race overturned in North Carolina due to absentee ballot fraud. So it affected a federal election. And again, the key is how close is the election? Because when the election's closed, it doesn't take a lot of votes stolen to make a difference.
Well, and what concerns me about that is, Hans, over the weekend I saw several interviews with folks who are in the polling business saying, Mr. President, to Donald Trump, you appear to be ahead, but you need an extra 5 percentage points in, say, an important state like Pennsylvania that's usually a key to winning the presidency. If you don't have those extra 5 points, you're going to be done in by fraud or by cheating. Do we really have a system that's so thoroughly screwed up that you have to not only win, but win plus 5% because of the cheating that goes on? That sounds like a pretty fraudulent system, doesn't it?
Well, unfortunately, in a lot of states, the rules are so loose that there's probably some truth to that. In Pennsylvania, actually, this election may be the worst example. And the reason for that is that you have an activist liberal state Supreme Court there that did 3 things that are just about guaranteed to cause problems. First of all, they extended the deadline for the receipt of absentee ballots for more than a week after the election. But then even worse, they said, you can't reject absentee ballots, election officials, even if the envelope has no postmark on it, which means that people could wait until after Election Day, see how the election's going, and then send in their vote. And then third, that very same court also said, and by the way, you can't reject absentee ballots just because the signature on the absentee ballot doesn't match the signature of the voter in his registration file. I mean, I can't think of a more thorough recipe for potential fraud and manipulation of the election results than that.
Well, and Hans, you're the legal fellow. You're a lawyer type. So, I'm used to, over the years as a reporter, running into stories where you say, gosh, we'd like to have charged that guy with a crime, but it's 10 days after the statute of limitations ran out. And you say, but there's still a good argument to charge him. And you say, it doesn't matter. 1 day past the statute of limitations, done deal. And our legal system is full of deadlines like that say you must put somebody on trial under the Speedy Trial Act within a certain period of time, or you must have this done by a certain deadline. And there isn't any fudge factor built in by the courts. Why are they building in a fudge factor, especially when many of the people who got absentee ballots may have had an opportunity to vote going back more than a month from the date of the election, and now the courts say, the deadline doesn't matter. Well, isn't it being a little bit pregnant, where you say, well, if a week is okay, why not 2 weeks? Why not Thanksgiving? Why not Christmas? Why not New Year's Eve? You turn in your ballot by New Year's Eve. It's still good, because you could extend that idea forever. Or you could have a deadline that says if the deadline is close of business election night, then it has to be in by then. And if you have something postmarked before then with a valid signature, we will count it, even if it actually physically arrived, thanks to the post office, a little bit late. But at least you've got some level of proof the ballot was cast while the election was still going on. Why are the courts, I know the Supreme Court has turned down a number of the states that ask for extensions. Why are they allowing it in some cases?
Well, I'll tell you, look, you're absolutely right. I mean, you summed up the situation exactly. And the problem in Pennsylvania is that you have, frankly, you have activist left-wing, progressive judges who are willing to do just about anything to try to ensure that their side wins. And that's what's going on. They don't have any basis in the law for acting the way they did. Look, the situation is this. Look, the U.S. Constitution gives state legislatures the authority to set the rules for federal elections. If the state legislature in Pennsylvania, if they wanted to extend the deadline or make these other changes, they could do that. But the courts don't have the power to do it. These are just judges interfering in the political process in their state and unfortunately getting away with it.
Well, and I would add to that, Hans, if you don't mind, that yes, a legislature could do it. But could you imagine not on the eve of an election, but, you know, in the calm light of day, 6 months from now, you go to the legislature and you say, we'd like to extend everything so that you can vote. Your signature doesn't have to match. You don't have to have a postmark, and the ballot doesn't have to arrive for a week after the election. Propose that even in a liberal state, and I think a legislature would have a tough time, arguing to constituents, we should make the change in this law so that your vote counts even if it shows up a week after the election. I would think most state lawmakers would say, I'm not voting for that. I don't care how liberal you think I am. We have to have deadlines for elections. And this seems like something even the state legislature wouldn't buy.
Oh, no, I think you're absolutely right. And what's so senseless about this is these courts, like these judges in Pennsylvania, they're saying, oh, but it's because of COVID-19. COVID-19's got nothing to do with this. Pennsylvania's had the same prior deadline, Election Day, for the receipt of absentee ballots for decades. Why all of a sudden, and that's never been a problem for people voting with absentee ballots in Pennsylvania, why all of a sudden, because of COVID-19, do they have to extend the deadline?
Well, and
There's no reason for it. They're just...
Hans, you and I could both imagine Philadelphia gets hit with a major storm or a power outage, or they get hit with a bunch of snow. And you say, well, because of the snow this year, we should give everybody some extra time. As you point out, they've had the same deadline all along, and I'm sure there have been plenty of circumstances that might have delayed people being able to physically go to the polls or being able to bring their ballot in, and they haven't decided to make an extension. And frankly, I've asked people, they said, well, COVID-19. I said, hold on, the amount of contact you have, if you walk up to the elections office, you hand over your ballot, you hand deliver it because you decided not to send it through the mail weeks ago, and that was your call, and you decided to take it in at the last minute, the amount of contact you have is less than most people who are very concerned about China virus might have had when they go to the pharmacy or the grocery store. That's Hans von Spakovsky, who's a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Hans, thanks so much for the